All right, hello everybody. Today we're in week 8, lesson 2, and we've been doing the rational expressions. And I said hopefully, or maybe at the end, I was going to do something with completing the square. I originally talked about, say, a bonus lesson, but I'm just going to make it part of the work we do this week. And we'll talk about this and then kind of take us into a quote final for next week. So I'm going to show you how to solve quadratics by completing the square today, and we'll talk about what that is. But in the intro, I wanted to tell you that to solve a quadratic, today's going to be the third way that we're going to learn to solve a quadratic. So initially, when you learn how to factor, we started solving by factoring. So here is x squared plus 6x minus 16. We asked for two factors of negative 16 that added up to 6. We use our diamond to organize our information. And we get x plus 8 times x minus 2. That's our factoring, and that equals 0. Set each binomial equal to 0 and solve for x. And we got x equals negative 8 and 2. Okay. On solving by the quadratic formula, we did our x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I taught you guys how to do the discriminants. We plugged in. We found the square root of 100 was 10. We did 1 with the plus and 1 with the minus, and our final answers were negative 8 and 2. And so that was our second way of solving a quadratic. And we talked about the fact that not all of our quadratics are going to factor real nice. So the quadratic formula is our backup, or is what we can use anytime to solve a problem. Okay? So factoring, solving by factoring is really easy if you can actually factor it. If there's a trinomial out there that I'm not sure it's going to factor, for example, if a doesn't equal 1, I might just go to the quadratic formula, because the more you do it, the faster you get. If you think about this, and I know a lot of you are at the same point, you know how to get the discriminant, you know how to plug in, and so something that was probably once intimidating for those of you who did the problems isn't as intimidating as it was. Okay, so our third way, and I got 4 examples for you today, and we're going to kind of just work in the same area today, is we're going to learn how to solve by completing the square. And then these are the steps that I've written out for you to complete the square. So it looks like a lot, but when you write this down, okay, remember you can pause and write it down, and maybe that's what you should do right now, is pause and write down the steps, and then I'll go over it with you. Okay, so it looks intimidating, but I see once you look at each step individually, I think you guys know how to move something to the other side by doing the opposite. I think you can take half of a number and square it. For example, half of the number 10 is 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. You can take this answer and add it to both sides of the equation. You just write it down. Factoring the trinomial will be our biggest work, but there's a secret there, there's a shortcut there that you're going to learn. You can take the square root of both sides, you can get x by itself, and then you're going to see how to just simply simplify the right side. And so I'm going to take you through what is this 7-step process on the 4 examples that we're going to work today. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and look at example 1. So hopefully your notes are all ready. You're ready to have steps. As always, I suggest that you have some different colors. We're probably going to keep this in black, blue, and green. And let's go ahead and take a look. Here is our first problem. We're going to solve x squared plus 6x minus 16. We know what our answer is supposed to come out to be. We've shown it twice. And so let's look at step 1. Move the number term over to the other side of the equation. so if we add 16 to the other side, it's going to look like this. X squared plus 6x so we add 16 to both sides, but I want you to take a look at what we did. We're going to fill in this space here. This is where we get to step 2. And if you look at here, it says add a number to both sides of the equation. So we're preparing for our future right here. So every time you move the number term over, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and create a space on both sides. Okay? So step 1, the opposite of subtracting 16 is adding 16. We create the space. Let's go to step 2. Take half of b, half of 6 is 3. And then I want you to square it. Okay? So all you do is take half of b, which is 3, and you square it. So we have this answer of 9. That is step 2. Okay? Add the number to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to rewrite some stuff here. So if you look, step 3 is you simply take that part right there, that 9, and you add it to both sides of the equation. Because of course, whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other. Okay? So 3 very simple steps. 3 steps that are just very easy for you to do. It's just doing them correctly in the right order. Let's go to step 4. Factor the trinomial on the left. Okay? So we're going to factor x squared plus 6x plus 9. I'm not going to show the work, but we're going to pretend sorry about that, I didn't speak. We're going to factor, so let's do the step. So 2 factors of 9 that add up to 6 are 3 and 3. And watch what's going to happen here. I'm not going to write x plus 3 and x plus 3. Just like x times x is x squared, x plus 3 times x plus 3, we could write as x plus 3 to the second power. Okay? So step 4 is done. But when we factor, a square is something times itself. So their answer when you factor will always be the same thing twice. But if I want you to look at something here, do you see this 3 here? We have a 3 also right here. You never actually have to factor the trinomial. It's pretty easy to do. But the shortcut is, whatever number is here will be right there. So step 4 is basically creating your square, okay, and simply putting it right here. If you do this problem over and over again, you're going to get that same result. So the shortcut is, on the left-hand side, whatever you take half of, that answer goes into your square. And here's the proof for it right here. Okay. Step 5. root of both sides. Now, I'm going to write the problem down twice so we don't mess up the original, but here is step 5. Take the square root of both sides. And so if we take the square root of both sides here, remember, look, at square and square root cancel each other out. And so we simply have x plus 3, and the square root of 25 is going to be 5. But remember, we talked about this before. When we solve, our answer is just not 5. We want both versions. We want plus or minus 5. So watch how I'm going to write this. The square root of 25 is plus or minus 5, and notice I've left a space here again. The reason why I've left the space is because I know what we're about to do in part 6. We're about to get x by itself. Okay? So on the left-hand side, you put the number in. When you square it, you'll simply just get the piece under the radical. The right-hand side is just flowing along. And we get to step 6, it says get x by itself. So the opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3. So if we subtract the negative 3 from the left-hand side, we get x equals negative 3 plus or minus 5. So we do 1 with the plus and 1 with the minus. And I'm simply going to come right here. I know we're really tight on the board. X equals negative 3 plus 5, negative 3 minus 5. So here we are in step 7. X equals 2 and negative 8. X equals 2 and negative 8. Okay? So we have a 7-step process for completing the square. I'll just kind of put that in blue to highlight. So it looks really complicated. It looks really fancy and complicated, but each step you are definitely capable of doing it. The mistake you might make is, of course, just missing a sign somewhere, or losing track of a number, or not maybe putting something in the right place. That's why it takes practice. Now I know when we do the 7 steps, you're kind of maybe looking at this going, geez, the quadratic formula looks really nice at this point. And of course, we love factoring, and that's great. But there is a lot of importance for you moving forward and know how to complete the square, especially because I want to show you next week for your final how we go from standard form to vertex form, which is something your integrated 3 teachers are going to have you look at next year. Okay? And if you think about it, completing the square is really easy if you do it over and over again, because you can just take half of something and square it. So you can get the left-hand side really, really fast. And then the right-hand side is just kind of the order of operations piece that you just have to pay attention to. Okay? All right, so there is our first example. So that is kind of example 1. And I'm going to go ahead and do 3 more examples with you, and then I'll show you the assignment. All right, let's go to example 2. So example 2 is going to be x squared minus 12x plus 32 equals 0. And let's go ahead and start our 7 steps. We'll do it a little bit faster this time. Move the number term over. So we subtract 32 from both sides. So we have x squared minus 12x plus blank, okay, we're getting ready for step 2, equals blank minus 32. Do not lose the sign. Half of negative 12, okay, don't lose our negative 12, is negative 6. And negative 6 squared is equal to 36. So there is step 2. Step 3, add the number that you get, your final answer, to both sides of the equation. So there is step 3. We take the 36 and add it to both sides. Okay? Remember, when you square something, it's always going to be positive. So this is never going to be negative right here. Okay? Right here and right here is never going to be negative. And then step 4, factor the trinomial on the left. So if we made a diamond, or here's our shortcut right here. 2 numbers that when you multiply you get 36, and when you put them together you get negative 12, is x minus 6 to the second power. So, once again, there is step 4 here. And step 4 is to simplify the right-hand side. 36 minus 32 is 4. Okay? Now, for your notes, you don't have to do this on your paper, but for your notes, I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite this again. So, step 5 is to take the square root of both sides. And so, on the left-hand side, square root and square cancel each other out. And the square root of 4 is 2. That's step 5. Step 6, get the x by itself. Well, it's x minus 6, so the opposite of subtracting 6 is adding 6. So the 6's canceled, and I put the 6 here, and I'm left with x equals 6 plus or minus 2, so we've accomplished step 6. And then step 7 is one with the plus and one with the minus. So last problem I put in here. This problem I'll just write it right here. I know we're kind of low here. So here is step 7. And I get an answer of 8 and 4. And of course it doesn't matter what order you put your answer in. So there is example 2. X squared minus 12x plus 32 equals 0. If you factor it, if you do the quadratic formula, if you complete the square, you will get an answer of x equals 4, comma 8, or x equals 4 or 8. All right? Let's go to example 3. And as I erase this and write example 3, I want you to know that it's really easy to take half of an even number. Maybe a little bit more challenging to take half of an odd number, and that's what we're going to go ahead and do in example 3. What are you going to do when your b value is odd? You got a little bit more to pay attention to. Let's do example 3. Okay, so here's example 3. We're going to solve x squared plus 5x minus 14 equals 0. So if you factor this, you'd be looking for two numbers that when you multiply, you get a negative 14. And when you add them together, you get 5. Some of you probably watching right now and say, oh, I know that would be x plus 7 and x minus 2. And if I do the opposite, I should get an answer of negative 7 and 2. I should have an answer of negative 7 and 2. Let's see if that's what we come up with. Step 1. Add 14 to both sides. So we have x squared plus 5x plus blank, okay, because that is crossed out. Remember, that's where we are. I'm not going to write the step numbers down this time. And I add 14 to the other side, and I prepare for my answer to 2. So we're going to go half of 5. And we don't change it to a decimal. So half of 5 is 5 halves. You simply put the 2 underneath the number. We're not going to put 2.5. We're going to put our answer in the exact answer. We're going to use maybe radicals if we have to. So here is 5 halves. And 5 halves squared, or 5 halves times 5 halves, is 25 over 4. Great. Remember, we got a calculator. We have no issues. We're doing just fine. All right. Add that number to both sides. So we have x squared plus 5x plus 5 over 2. Plus 25 over 4 and 25 over 4 plus 14. And let me fix this up for you so we see how we've been doing it. 4, 25 over 4. Add this number to both sides. Then you want to put an arrow into your original notes right there. Okay? All right, step 4, factor the trinomial. Well, this would be pretty tough to factor in any other situation, so it's a good thing that we know that if we were to factor this, we simply use this number right here. So it is x plus 5/2 squared. That's not too bad. Now over here, you could easily, like I said, take a calculator. I don't want a decimal, but you could actually easily take a calculator and just do 25 over 4, your fraction button, plus 14, and you get an answer. Before calculators, we would put a 1 under it, and of course to add fractions you need common denominators, and so we would get (81 over 4). Okay? So 25 over 4, put a 1 under it, okay? 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 14 is 56, so if we were adding fractions back in our older, younger days, that's where we'd be. And then what do we do next? We take the square root of both sides. So let's write the problem again. Been doing that in blue. I just picked up the green marker. And remember, this doesn't change. Square root and square cancel each other out. And then I get set up to move the 5/2 over, and then the square root of 81 over the square root of 4, you can break it up into 2 pieces. So the square root of 81 is 9, and the square root of 4 is 2. So it's simply 9/2. Okay? Some of the problems, if I'm giving you a problem with the odd, it will work out nice for you. I'm not going to really put something in there that's really complicated. I want you to get a nice integer answer out of it. All right, the opposite of adding 5/2. Is subtracting 5/2. It's x equals -5/2 plus or minus 9 over 2. Notice that we have common denominators, so it's still 1 with the plus and 1 with the minus. So let's kind of do it this way. You can actually bring these together and say -5 plus 9 over 2. And say -5 plus 9 is 4. 4 over 2 is 2. -5 minus 9 is -14. -14 over 2 is -7. And we have our answer. 2, and x equals negative 7. I'll tell you what, if you do really well when b is even, you're really going to get a majority of the problems. Of course, people struggle when our b value is odd because of that extra piece in there. If you can master that, or just practice it, all I'm asking you to do is do the problems that I'm going to assign to you. Those of you that are really going to move on to integrated 3 and really want to get off to a good start, try and master it, learn how to operate things, do your calculator, whatever, and when you can handle a b value that's odd and all the other crazy stuff, you're in really, really good shape. Okay? So, let me go ahead and give you the last example, and we're going to do example 4. And there is no other video that's going to be made. So if you're hanging in there right now, we're probably getting close to about a half hour like we would normally in class. Pause or take a break when you need to, but let's do our last one. So let's hit example 4. So we're going to do x squared minus 10x minus 9. This one does not factor. You might think, well, wait a minute, I have two factors of negative 9 that add to negative 10. Isn't like 9 and 1 going to work some way? No. The signs are different. Okay? So your middle value would be an 8. So this guy can't factor. So there's only two ways that we can solve the problem that I'm showing you. That is the quadratic formula, which will definitely give you an answer, and completing the square, which will give us the same answer. Let's complete the square and see kind of maybe how fast we can do this one, okay? So, part 1, move, subtract 9 from both sides. Nine to both sides. So, very quick move. Some of you at the end of the year are probably at the point where you don't even have to do this. You can just jump from the black to the black line right there. Sorry about that. All right. Half of negative 10 is negative 5. And negative 5 squared is 25. Watch your sign. We have our square. Notice that I put the blank back here. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I usually prefer not to do it that way. If you are more comfortable doing it that way, absolutely go ahead and do it. But for my thing, I'm going to go ahead and just switch this back right now. One of the reasons why is because sometimes this will be negative, and we know this is always going to be positive, but it really doesn't matter, but I prefer it. Okay, so here's our 25. And we're going to go to the next step. So we factor two numbers, factors of 25, they give us negative 10 or x minus 5 and x minus 5. Or remember, we can just go right to that right away. And 25 plus 9 is 34. Don't try and say 36. We're a little bit short, but of course we like 36 because we think it's going to take the square root. So don't fall for any tricks here. All right, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we have x minus 5 squared, and we have the square root of 34. And we're going to see if the square root of 34 simplifies, but we're not going to change it to a decimal. We're going to simplify the radical if we can. And the square root of 34 does not simplify. It doesn't break down, and so we simply would leave it as the square root of 34. Remember, this is called an exact answer. Okay, as soon as you change it to a decimal and you round off, now we're approximating. So this goes back to our lesson a couple weeks ago at the end of the quadratic formula, where we simply left our answers in radical form. Okay? And now we're going to go ahead and add 5 to both sides. And we're going to say that our answer is x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 34, and you are done. Okay? Unless I want you to give me an approximation, you would change radical 34 to a decimal, and then you could of course do 1 with the plus and 1 with the minus. Also remember, if we graph this, these decimals, this is where our parabola would cross the x-axis. Okay, so remember, in all these solutions, if I ask you to graph, this is where our parabola would cross the x-axis, up or down, or not touching at all. Okay? So, for the end of week 2, I would like you guys to practice completing the square. And I got 6 problems right now for you that I would like you to do, and I'm going to go ahead and spin you around. So, let's move. Okay. So, I would like you guys to do these 6 problems. I've already kind of listed the answers for you, although there are apps out there where you can get the answer. So notice we got 3 with an even b value. We have a couple with working with the odd numbers, and you can tell you should get an answer. So once again, do not have the answers right out in front of you so you can go ahead and just force it to happen. Have the answers available, but do the work on your own and see if you can match up. If you don't get the right answer, go back and fix your mistake. But I want to talk about the answer to problem 6. If you do problem 6, your final answer is going to be -3 plus or minus the square root of 5. Now, what's half of 6? 3. 3 squared is 9. So I can already see adding the numbers. Completing the square is actually can be a lot faster than you think. But I want you to see problem 6. Had we done, by the way, it won't factor. Had we done the quadratic formula, you would have got a discriminant of 20. And we would have got -6 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 2. The square root of 20 would have simplified to 4 times 5, or the square root of 4 is 2, 2 radical 5. So it would be -6 plus or minus 2 radical 5 over 2. But guess what? 2 goes into -6, and 2 goes into 2. So last week, or a couple weeks ago, you might have stopped right there. But if we keep simplifying, our final answer would be -6 divided by 2 is 3. The 2's cross out, and we get -3 plus or minus radical 5. So what that tells me is that if you do the quadratic formula, you might have some work to do to simplify your radical. If you complete the square, which I don't think really takes that much longer, you will get your final answer right away. Okay? So what might look like more work in the beginning actually gives you a cleaner answer than maybe going from here to here to here when you do the problem. Okay, so I got 6 of these problems for you. That's what I would like you to add in between like Thursday and Sunday. And I want to just give you a little something next week. I'm so proud of you guys that have been with me the entire time. I really think it's going to be helpful to you. I hope next year we can get back to some normalcy. And like I said, no matter what happens, I'll always be here to kind of help you guys through this, even in next year if you have trouble in math. Alright, I'll see you guys soon in probably what will be our last video of the year. Alright, take care.